Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Meet the Expert webinar series designed for Google Workspace IT admins. I'm Tom, and I'm a Google Workspace Technical Solutions Engineer for Google Drive and editors like Docs, Sheets, and Slides. This is the sixth session of the Admin webinar series for Google Workspace. This session will be recorded and available for on-demand viewing. Today, I'm here with my colleague and co-host Aisha, who is going to introduce this webinar's format.
Hello everyone, I'm Aisha. I'm working as a technical solutions engineer at Google alongside Tom, and I'm located in Austin, Texas. This session is for Google Workspace administrators who want to use shared drives more effectively. Today we'll spend about 10 to 15 minutes presenting a demo, and the second half is Q&A. We'll be answering some of the questions we have received from the question form. If you haven't done so, please submit your questions now to be selected for the Q&A session. You can find the link on the screen or click on the link in the video description.
Perfect. Now let's look at our agenda. Aisha will start by explaining the differences between My Drive and shared drives. We will also be taking a look at supported Google Workspace editions for shared drive. Then we will demo how to create a shared drive and add members, create a file in the shared drive and review permissions, view shared drive settings in the admin console, and delete files in the shared drive and then restore. At the end, we'll have the question and answer session. Remember to submit your question using the form. Now to Aisha.
So let's start with the demo. First, we'll discuss a brief difference between My Drive and Shared Drive. So files in My Drive are owned and maintained individually, whereas files in Shared Drive are owned by a team and organization added to the shared drive as a member. Also, an interesting thing, all the members of a shared drive will automatically have access to all the files of the shared drive based on their respective roles, which means files and folders inside a shared drive cannot have more restricted permissions than the shared drive itself. Example, anyone who is a member of the shared drive cannot be removed from the files or folders within the shared drive. And also, administrators can manage the shared drives from the admin console, unlike My Drive. Next slide. Now let's discuss subscriptions. ShareDrive as a feature is available to Business Standard, N+, Enterprise, Google Workspace for Education starting from Fundamentals, Standard and above, Google Workspace for Nonprofits, G Suite Business, and Essentials. Let's dive into the demo now. We'll start by creating a test ShareDrive. So this is our drive here for a test user. The shared drive is now created. We see now we'll manage the members in the shared drive by clicking on the drop down at the top. We'll add two members, one as a manager, another one as a content manager to the shared drive. Remember, you can add members with different roles like manager, contributor, viewer, and others. Each role will define how the members can interact with the files and what permissions they will hold on the shared drive. Note, managers have the maximum permissions, like they can add members, move files out of the shared drive, delete files, and even delete the shared drive itself. Now we'll move by creating a test file in this shared drive. So this test file is created. We add some text content to it. When we open the sharing settings of this file, we see all the shared drive members are automatically added to the file permissions based on their respective roles. We see their permissions are not highlighted, which means it's unchangeable. They'll always hold access to the files inside the shared drive, being a shared drive member already. Now let's discuss the most important thing, the shared drive settings. Opening the shared drive settings here, we see we can control how the data is shared on the shared drive by enabling and disabling these settings. Enabling people outside of the domain to be added to the shared drive files will enable external users to add the shared drive files. Enabling people who aren't shared drive members be added to the shared drive files will retain all permissions of the file when files are moved from My Drive to a shared drive without losing any existing permissions of the file. These same shared drive settings and a few other settings related to external data sharing can be managed by a domain administrator as well by using the admin console. So if we go to admin console right now and we go to apps, Google Workspace, Drive and Docs, and sharing settings at the top. So this is the place where administrators can manage the shared drive settings via admin console. Now let's demo moving a file from my drive to a shared drive. Before that, let's enable that setting on the shared drive setting. We go to our test share drive, go to sharing settings, we enabled it here, okay. Let's move the file from my drive to a shared drive. Before that, let's check the ACL's permissions on this file, which is in the my drive. So Alexander is a test user who is already added to this share drive file, which is with editor permissions. Now let's move this file. Let's open the sharing settings once the move is done. We see the members of the shared drive automatically got access to this file, which was just moved from the My Drive, and their permissions are not highlighted and not changeable. And the users who were having access, like Alexander was already having access to this file outside of this shared drive, they continue to retain their access because we have already enabled the setting people who aren't shared drive members be added to the shared drive files. And these permissions are changeable. As these users are not added to the shared drive as members, instead they are directly added to this file, hence they can be removed from the file permissions if and when needed. Now let's delete a file and restore it. Every shared drive has a trash of its own. We'll delete a file and move it to trash. Not only managers and content managers can move files to trash in a shared drive. In order to restore, we can view shared drive trash and restore the file from there. Note managers have access to permanently delete files from the trash. Remember, there are limits to the number of items, members, and daily uploads you can have in shared drive. Like a folder in a shared drive can support up to 20 levels of nested folders. Now let's demo deleting the shared drive itself. Note, only managers can delete a shared drive. Before you can delete a shared drive, the shared drive needs to be empty. So let's move all the files to trash and make the shared drive empty. Shared drive can be restored from the admin console now. As a domain administrator, we can go to Google Workspace, Drive and Docs, Manage Shared Drive. We select our shared drive, which is deleted, and we can right click on it we can click on it more and start restoring it. You can only restore items in shared drives deleted within the last 25 days. So we select the past day here. We select the date range to recover the data. Going back to the drive, we see the shared drive is restored, but we do not see any files here because the previous status of the shared drive before deletion, all the files were in trash. So once we go and visit shared drive's trash, we see files here. We can restore files from the trash. Note, even if the files are permanently deleted from the shared drive, they all get restored once we restore the shared drive without any data loss. So this ends our demo today. We have shared all the related Help Center articles for reference under Learn More in this video's description. Now Tom will take us through the Q&A session.
Check out some of the questions we've received so far. I'm going to read the first question for Aisha, and let's take a look. We switched to Google Workspace Business Standard, and we should have a pool of 2 terabytes. A user tried to upload an 8 gigabyte file, and there's an error saying not enough storage. What is causing this error?
We understand the user here has a business standard subscription. Note, to get a 2 TB of storage with business standard, they require at least 5 users in their domain, else the pool storage would be limited to 1 TB. Also, pool storage accounts for all the data stored in other Google Workspace services as well, like shared drives, Gmail, chat, photos. It is not just limited to Drive, so it's recommended to check your storage consumption in all the Google Workspace services. Additionally, I would suggest you can also request a storage increase by adding more users to the domain and also upgrading to a higher subscription. Let's move to the next question. Whenever my admin creates a file, they are the owner. This means that if I need to make a change, I can't. I thought as the owner, I would have access to all folders. How can I make sure I have access to all the files?
That is correct. Whenever a file is created outside of a shared drive, the creator of the file has the owner permission on that file. That means if someone else creates a file inside of a My Drive folder that you own, the editor permission from your account propagates down from the folder to the file. The owner permission does not propagate through folder hierarchies. This contrasts shared drive, where all files placed inside are owned by the shared drive itself, which is then owned by the domain, rather than the creator of the file. Shared drives also follow the expansive access model, which can be read about in a link in our description. But in essence, it just means that you cannot restrict file permissions in a shared drive below, uh, further down in a hierarchy. Let me read the next question. Where can I find a good training to give my employees on how to set up Google Workspace for my staff on their computers and share folders and files?
So we have detailed Google Workspace Help Center articles for each service, which discusses how to use each product. We have Admin Help Center as well for domain administrators to refer, configure, and maintain Google Workspace services for their domain. And finally, we have Google Workspace Learning Center, which has video sessions and snapshots guiding through each step of the product features. The Learning Center link will be shared in the resources section of today's webinar. Let's move to the next question now. Is there any way we can facilitate calendar and drive sharing between companies that belong to the same corporate group but still have different Google Workspace?
Sharing Drive and Calendar resources with users outside of your workspace domain is possible, but may require you to list these organizations in your domain's administrator console. We've included some links in the description below, which should allow for this. Um, and I'll move on to the next question. Uh, can a user share a file from a shared drive with a user within the organization who does not have access to that shared drive?
Okay, so yes, the files within a shared drive can be directly shared with the users who are not the shared drive members. We presented the same use case today in our demo as well. This would be similar to sharing files in My Drive, just adding the users directly on the sharing settings of the files inside the shared drive. You can add the users as editors or viewers, commentators to files directly as per the need. Adding them to the entire shared drive won't be required. So the next question now is how to quickly search for the right shared information and files.
That's a good question. Many would say that searching is an art, whether you're doing it via Google search or searching via Drive. We recommend that you use the filter feature in the Drive search toolbar in order to isolate the parameters of files that you're looking to find. We've included a link about how to use the filter search in the description. So our next question is how to restrict downloads of files and shared drives from an admin perspective.
So yes, admins can restrict download of files in a shared drive by disabling the setting allow viewers and commentators to download, print, and copy files in the admin console. This setting is located in Drive and Docs sharing settings under the shared drive creation section on the admin console. Let's go to next question now. How do shared drive affect your storage total for each user? And what happens if you delete or move an item in a shared drive? Is this the same as the shared with me tab?
This is a good question. Shared drives are not the same as the Shared with Me tab. The Shared with Me tab covers all files that have you as a user on the permission of the file itself. Shared drives are counted under your pooled storage, Um, this means that if you create a file, well, pooled storage is another topic, but essentially, if you create a file in shared drive, it's counted against your domain's total pooled storage sum. And if you delete a file from shared drive, it will similarly be subtracted. Next question. Can I have files or folders in the shared drives that only certain team members have access to, such as only management or only owners and admins?
Great question. ShareDrive follows the expansive access model as we discussed in our demo as well. So you cannot restrict permissions on subfiles or folders if you have granted someone permissions to the top level of the shared drive.
A bit of extra on this one. Um, if you want to have, if you want to sort of bypass this requirement, you can add everyone you want to a subfolder in the shared drive, and then keep the sort of restricted files in the top level of the shared drive for only your admins or executives. Uh, but there's no way to restrict permissions further down in a hierarchy from a top level folder.
So if like I would like to add to that as well. So if you're looking for just having few people having access to few files in the shared drive, so always prefer adding direct permissions for those users and like not adding those users to the shared drive members. Okay, so let's go to the next question. Can I share a subfolder with someone outside of my organization?
Yes, you can, but you must enable the sharing data outside the domain setting in your shared drive settings, as well as hypothetically allow listing that domain in your admin console if you have restrictive settings related to that. There should be more data on this in the Help Center articles in the description. Next question. I would like to understand how I can see a log file of names shared by my users, of file names shared by my users.
So yes, all the file activity can be viewed by the domain admins in the admin console by visiting Drive audit logs, and users can also view the file activity for their files by right-clicking File, open View Details, and analyze the activity.
Okay. I think, do we have any more questions? Okay, if you change the shared permission of the drive file, will it affect all the files in the folder, or do you need to go to each file? I have 100 files and folders within one shared drive. Great question. So if you change the permission on a top level, oh, sorry, Aisha, did you want to take this one?
No, go ahead, Tom.
Okay, I'll continue. If you change the permissions on a top level folder within a shared drive, it will propagate to every folder beneath that file. This will not propagate, well, this will not like move to parallel files that are on the same level as the first folder. But if you change the ACL on the top level of the shared drive itself, like adding somebody as a new member to the shared drive, they will gain access to every single folder and file within that shared drive at the ACL permission that you set for the shared drive. I think we
Okay,
can move on to the next question.
so the next question here is I created a share drive, but an employee added a file and I can't edit it. Can you please clarify how this is possible and how we can change that? So, in a shared drive, the permissions of every user is identified by the role of the user within the shared drive. So, if you're added as a manager or a content manager or a contributor to the shared drive, then only you can actually edit files in the shared drive. So, the recommendation is checking your roles and adding an editor role to yourself, and there is a help center article as well where we define every role and what kind of access the people can have with those roles. So any more live questions?
All right. I think that's all the time we have for questions today. Aisha, take it away.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for joining us today, everyone. Our Q&A responses will be posted in the Workspace admin community. If you sent us a question that we did not answer live, please look out for the blog post after today's session. We'd really appreciate it if you could provide feedback on the session. You can find the link to the form on screen or click on the link in the video description. You'll also find some more resource links in the video description that we suggest you refer for more details on the topics covered today in this webinar.
And remember to join the next webinar for admins, how to set up Google Voice for your organization. It's happening on March 8th at the same time as today's session. To see the full schedule, check out the Meet the Expert website in the video description. And remember to stay healthy.
And stay safe. Thank you, everyone, for joining.